It's really hard to apply for university, right? There is so many different forms, submitting documents, payments, and then there's application points. Where do you start? Well, this whole series is going to cover everything that you need to know about applying to university, everything from calculating your APS score all the way to bursaries and navigating the whole process until the day you get accepted into university. Welcome back, everyone, to Miss Angler's biology class. I am Miss Angler. In today's video, we are going to specifically look at how do you actually apply to university, and I'm going to walk you through the very basic steps that sometimes are quite confusing because every single university seems to have a different way in which they process applications. Their forms all look very different. And so I'm going to walk you through that to make it super easy. Now, if there are any questions that you have or topics that I haven't covered and you want to see them as we go into this whole series, don't forget to leave those in the comments section down below. Now, the first step in applying to university is you obviously need to choose a university, specifically ones that carry the degree that you want to do, or the ones that are in your province and that are more accessible to you. So that's a good place to start. And a lot of different schools do these kinds of university days where they explain the different options. I can go into more detail on specific universities, but they'll be later on in the series. The next thing that you need to cover is the closing dates. Now, most universities are opening their application process in the first week of April. So by the time you're watching this video, they will already be open. But it's important to note the closing dates because you have to get all your documentation in before those dates. Now, I've included a little table up over here of all of the universities, the top 10 universities in South Africa and their closing dates. It's important to diarize those and just pause the video as we scroll through them to see the various closing dates. Something to also note about the closing dates is that not all degrees close on the same day. For example, UCT is going to close their applications on the 31st of July. But the University of the Witwatersrand, or WITS, has some of its programs closing on the 30th of June, while others are on the 30th of September. Now, this might be because various degrees require different documentation that you might not have at that stage. And on top of that, some degrees require more body of work to be submitted. I am going to do a whole series on that as well, about all the documentation that you need to provide. And if you're doing a very specific degree, I'm going to cover the specific things you need to actually get before you can actually apply for that degree. One of the next steps you need to look at is your application form. Now, different universities do applications differently. And unfortunately, that's what makes this process really time-consuming and really frustrating because you can't actually copy and paste all your information over and over again. You have to go individually. Now, some universities have a digital application form that you fulfill on the website. Others have created a whole portal system like UCT, and I have included a screenshot of what it looks like when you access it up here. And basically, you have to create a whole profile. And what's nice about the profile is it has all your information on it. And so you don't need to submit multiple things in pieces. But it's important to know that you will have to do an application for every single university that you want to apply to. And let's not forget, you also need to apply to more than one degree. You should never limit yourself to one choice in your application. You should rank your choices from the one that you want the most all the way down to maybe your third favorite choice. But it's important to do that in case you don't make it into your first choice. Now, why do we do this? Because you are creating a safety net for yourself. Number one, you are going to be able to get into university maybe with your second or third choice. And once you're in the university, it's actually a lot easier to change into another faculty. And what we see in the first year of university is many students changing their course and their degree and actually moving into what they want in their second year. Does that mean you have a whole year of university that you feel like you've wasted? That's a very poor way to look at it, because what you could also be doing is gaining credits that you carry into your new degree. And that means that sometimes you don't have to do those first year subjects again because you've already done them previously. Now that you have found the university that you want to go to and you have familiarized yourself with your degree and your degree options, it's now important to know a couple of things. Number one, you have to pay a registration fee. Now, yet again, I have included alongside here, and you can pause to read as well, the top 15 universities in South Africa and how much they charge. And you'll notice some of the heavy hitters like UCT and WITS, they all charge 100 Rand for you to do your registration. It's important to keep that in mind when you're budgeting for your university application process. You will also notice in the table that I have put up here is that I have summarized where you actually do your application. So like where on the portal, where on their website, along with how much you need to pay, as well as the required documents. Now, the required documents is the second thing that you are going to need, and that generally is going to be your ID document. It is going to be your most recent set of results. Now, some universities take your grade 11 results only at this stage because you obviously haven't written matric. If you have written matric, they will obviously take your final matric results. And if you are rewriting your matric, in other words, you wrote the year previously, but you're upgrading your results, you are going to want to use your new results. Now, depending on when those results come out, it might actually be too late because of the closing date for some universities and the time in which you get your new marks. So it's important to keep that in mind as well if you're rewriting in June. But what some universities also do, and I know UCT does this, is they actually take your term 1 school report for grade 12. So what you need to do is you need to familiarize yourself with the application process and also what documents each of these universities want, and you can always find that on their website. You are going to be looking for things on their website that say like prospectus student or undergrad student. That's what you are. You're an undergrad, you don't have a degree yet, you're applying to get your first degree. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to applications and the documentation you need is the unique requirements different degrees have. Now, you'll notice, for example, medicine at UCT is going to require you to do NBTs, but they're also going to require you to submit other documentation as well. If you're going into fine art, you'll need to submit a portfolio of work. If you're planning on applying to WITS, the University of the Witwatersrand for medicine, not only are you going to have to write the NBTs, but you're also going to make yourself available for an interview. And an interview process is quite common for medicine and for other highly applied 4 degrees because they also want to meet you in person, and it's not just about your marks. Other requirements that universities might ask for, depending on your degree, could be something like music. You might have to audition to get your position, perhaps something like graphic design or architecture. You might have to submit a portfolio of drawings, of ideas to set you apart because some of these degrees are very small. It means that they only take on maybe anywhere between 70 to 100 pupils only a year, and they have to be incredibly selective. Keep in mind that some degrees take on 700 to 1,000 pupils in their first year. So when it's very selective, they're going to ask you to submit a portfolio of work. Now, one more important aspect about the documentation that you're going to submit is that it does need to be certified and you do need to have your originals. That means you must always have an original of your ID, of your matric results, but you also need photocopies that are certified when you submit. Often what happens is people submit just like photocopies of these things that are not certified, and this really puts the whole application process on a halt, because what they'll often do is they'll ask you to resubmit everything. It takes even longer for you to be approved, and you might even miss out on the deadline, which is a big no-no. Now, this is just the introduction to the entire series. In the next video, I'm going to be covering what exactly is an APS score or APS points, and that has to do with the amount of points that you need to get into your chosen degree. You'll notice that when you research your degree, it will come up with all of the required subjects you need, but it also presents you with a number of points that you need to get. Now, these can be quite tricky to calculate sometimes, but I'm going to cover that in the next video. And don't forget, if you have any other questions relating to applications in university, or once you're in university, what to expect, then don't forget to leave them in the comment section down below. And I will see you all again soon. Bye!